Welcome into the party on Broad, live here on the Edge of Philly Sports Network. It's 8 p.m. on Friday. Real party time. Thank God it's Friday. I'm Freddie Burns. I have Chris Dives, Rob Lange. We're going to get into a ton of stuff tonight. Sixers news. We didn't talk about it last week because we are at a show set. We got a new head coach. Nick Nurse is in the building. We're going to get into our thoughts on Nick Nurse and how he'll impact the Sixers, as well as what players on the Sixers will benefit most from being with Nick Nurse as the new coach. Also, we're all going to get a chance to be Daryl Morey, and we are going to select how we would do what we would do with our starting five and what some of the bench pieces we would fill as well. So let's kick this off first with Nick Nurse. Dives, what was your reaction from the signing of Nick Nurse?
I think big picture wise, Nick Nurse's strength is game planning, its strategy. Likewise, like that's been one of the biggest part of the Sixers' problems the last few years. You can't deny that. Yes, Joel Embiid and James Harden choked in game 6 and 7, but as a team, like they were just like one or two adjustments away from getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. I also don't think Nick Nurse is a player's coach, which is going to be interesting when he has to deal with Joel Embiid and some of his antics at times. And let's be honest, the organization has 100% enabled its stars since the process years. So I'm excited for Nurse. He was my number one. I think Joel Embiid could use a kick in the ass given how everything ended in this playoffs. So I think it was a good start. So for Joel Embiid, I think Nick Nurse, he's a creative thinker. He's going to get Embiid better looks on offense, might even extend his career. So it's a good signing.
Nick Nurse was my guy as well. The day after the loss, I tweeted Nick Nurse is the move. Rob, you're a basketball coach. You know the X's and O's. You were a big Doc guy. I don't want to say big Doc guy. I'm not painting you like you're like, you recognize his flaws, but you weren't over the top hater of him. How do you feel about the move and the X and O's specifically with Nick Nurse?
Well, look, once the firing went down, I think it became pretty clear, for me at least, that Nick Nurse was at the top of my list because of, listen, his coaching job with Toronto started in a very similar way, right? It was a team that was very good, that had a roster that couldn't get over the hump, and it was Nick Nurse and, yes, the Kawhi Leonard, the robot form, that led them to an NBA title. But I just thought that Nick Nurse was the best guy for this job because you have players in place. He's going to hold you accountable. He's not afraid to call you out. He's not afraid to have a conversation with you. I don't know if he said it in this press conference or if he said it somewhere else about, having to pull Kyle Lowry into his office one day and lay into him and say, we suck tonight. We're going to take a lot of crap for this. We have to just take it and show them what we're made of in the next game. That is the kind of thing about Nick Nurse I like. He's absolutely an X's and O's guy. One of Doc's flaws was I don't think the adjustments were really made in game very well. I think Nick Nurse does make those adjustments. I think game 6 doesn't, like I said, I blame that on the players, but I think if you have a Nick Nurse there that something is drawn up to at least end that little skid and they maybe get out of game 6 and go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Listen, I think it says a lot for this organization because I know after the loss, I was defeated. I just thought this was it. It was over. They weren't going to win anything. For Nick Nurse to choose this job when he could have chosen Milwaukee, probably when he could have chosen Phoenix, tells me that there's still something here. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think it speaks volumes that Nick Nurse said, I want to coach Joel Embiid and I want to be the coach of Philadelphia 76ers.
It certainly does speak volumes. He could have had Kevin Durant. Well, Chris Paul's gone now. A young Devin Booker to run with, DeAndre Ayton. Like that's a squad there. Then you get the other side. You get Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. These are established guys, already champions. So for him to pick the Sixers was eye-opening, and I remember just being nervous because I'm like, all right, they interviewed Nurse. He didn't sign yet. what's going on here? What's going on? Like for a minute there, I thought he was holding out for the Boston job because it looked like Boston was going to get swept. I'm like, no, he's going to go there. Dives, you had your finger up. What were you about to say?
Well, I just wanted to make one last note on Nick Nurse because I was doing a little deep diving into the 2019 Raptors when they beat the Sixers and won the finals today. And I was kind of looking at what they saw with a Nick Nurse offense that was heavily surrounding a major star in Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard's terrific. But when you look at that, when I was looking at the stats, you saw what? You go back in time, it was like the anti-Doc Rivers offense. The Sixers were among the tops in the league in ball movement. That is a Nick Nurse staple. What you're going to see with Nick Nurse is a lot of ball movement. You're not going to see an offense where players are holding onto the ball for more than 1 second. After watching Doc Rivers' heavy ISO playoff offense in the playoffs, man, this guy has the exact opposite take. You're going to see a lot of weaves. You're going to see a lot of horns. You're going to see a lot of pick and rolls to initiate dribble drives, initiate penetration, find open shooters on the perimeter. You're going to see guys move in without the basketball, DHOs. Wasn't that fun? I miss those days, that Brett Brown offense with Embiid and JJ and Dario. And there's a lot of things to it. More to add to that, but I'm excited to see where this offense takes that next step.
And his defenses are always the top of the league every single year. It's very important that we have a good defense, and I think he's going to need to find the players to fit because over in Toronto, all them guys have length, and we don't have that. 3-and-D, we don't have that yet. So that's going to be intriguing. One of the things that I'm really excited about is the offensive rebounding. I don't know how long this has been going on that other teams, because it's before Brett Brown even, other teams always seem to out-hustle us and get that rebound. Outside of a few playoff PJ Tucker games and when in the regular season, we don't have that where he has an actual focus on that. 3 players are supposed to crash and 2 are supposed to get back. And that's your effing job. And that's going to be awesome because I'm going to love to see for once the Sixers be that squad. Another huge takeaway is he's always thinking about the playoffs. He spoke in the press conference about his playoff toolbox, that he's going to try anything in the regular season. And if it doesn't work, he's going to crumble it up and throw it away. But if it does work, he's not going to use it ad nauseum. He's going to put that in a toolbox and say, hey, you know what? We might need that in the second round against the Boston Celtics. We don't want to show too much. I'm very excited for Nick Nurse. Rob?
You guys made, Chris had made a point a couple minutes ago when, and I lost my train of thought here. So one of the things, though, that you were saying was he will throw everything at you defensively. He's not afraid to throw some ludicrous defense out there. I think the Sixers needed a little more excitement on that end. I think that, when you do that, you think about when Doc would go to the zone in certain games this year and the momentum that they would build by doing something a little bit differently. Nick Nurse is going to change things up, man. He's not going to keep things stagnant. And I think that is going to be huge for this team. And Dives, you have brought up, and I think it's a huge point. Joel Embiid is now at the point in his career where he needs a kick in the ass. Okay? This is now coach number 3. You haven't been out of the second round. I'm not saying it's all on Joel Embiid, but if it doesn't work now, the question, listen, you heard the questions after this series. I think this was the first time that the fan base, a majority of the fan base, began to question Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And I think it was warranted. I do. I believe it was warranted. That Game 6, allowing them not to give him the ball in Game 6. I don't care what a coach draws up. You're the superstar. You get the ball in your hands, and then to give up in the second half like he did in Game 7 and go back to pouty Embiid is just not acceptable, and I don't think Nick Nurse is going to allow that.
It's funny you bring that up because I just heard a Facebook reel about Larry Bird, Danny Ainge, and his name was Danny Johnson, I believe. DJ is what they called him. And the play with 7 seconds to go in the game, the coach said, hey, drew up a play for Danny Ainge to hit the buzzer beater. And Larry Bird walked over to DJ and said, just get me the ball. Like, they put their hands in a huddle, like, 1, 2, 3, break. And as they're, like, walking to the court, Bird goes, nah, just get me the ball. And DJ's a rookie thinking, like, what do I do here? Listen to the coach and Danny Ainge or give it to Bird? Well, he gave it to Bird, and Bird hit the buzzer beater. Danny Ainge was furious. But your point is, it didn't matter what the coach said. It didn't matter what the offense was. The star player, which is Joel Embiid, goes and gets the ball, and that's what he needed to do, and he didn't do it.
I think that's what's most disheartening about how the season ended. Legacies were on the line. You saw his body language in Game 7. You have to legitimately question whether or not Joel Embiid has it up here mentally, whether he is physically he's an MVP player, but mentally, is he able to get a team over the hump and win a championship? You have to question that.
Yeah.
Well, Embiid certainly will be impacted by Nick Nurse and the way they run this offense, because traditionally he hasn't had a center like Embiid. So let's dive into the players that are going to most benefit from Nick Nurse. I'll start with you, Rob. Who do you think is going to benefit most out of this current roster?
It's really interesting. I mean, I think Joel Embiid is a guy that you look at, but I don't want to go to him because we just talked about him. I'm going to say Tyrese Maxey. And the only reason I'm going to say that is, listen, with his growth and development under Sam Cassell, under Doc Rivers was extraordinary. But Nick Nurse said it best. He said, the fact is he's grown leaps and bounds, and he still has room to grow leaps and bounds more. I kind of look at, like Fred VanVleet is a nice guard in the NBA, but Fred VanVleet really grew under Nick Nurse. And I kind of am hoping now, I'm not saying Fred VanVleet and Tyrese Maxey are the exact same player, but I'm hoping that, Maxey, Nurse can help Tyrese tap in to some more, like one of the things that I saw a little bit from Tyrese this year that I love to see him work on is the finishing at the rim. Sometimes it was great, but other times I feel like he went in and just kind of threw the ball up there. I think Nick Nurse is going to be able to hone him in on that. And the great thing about Maxey is he's coachable. And he played for John Calipari. Nobody gets into their players' asses more than John Calipari. He's going to accept Nick Nurse getting his ass. So I'm going to go with Tyrese Maxey here because I think it's just going to be the next step in his development.
Maxey's a great one, and he commented in his press conference about Maxey about vision and seeing the floor. Immediately, he knew, like, seeing the floor, reading plays, drawing two people to find the open man. And when it was commented on his defense, he said, I didn't think Maxey's defense is as bad as you're making it out to be, but we're certainly going to pressure the ball. And I think, to your point, Rob, it being Maxey, a full court press, that type of setting, getting up in someone's face, being annoying, that is going to fit well with the way Nick Nurse runs his defenses. Dives, I saw you smirk when he said Maxey. I feel like that was your guy. You got someone else?
It was Maxey. I'm excited to see what he can do under Nick Nurse. I'm excited to see kind of him expanding his game in a DHO two-man game offense with Joel Embiid, with the pick and roll. Maxey was, 83rd percentile, I believe, in the pick and roll this year. That dropped the 30th percentile in the playoffs. That's unacceptable. And I know James Harden has the ball, but I want to see – we're going to talk about this more soon about how I would project the Sixers in 2023, 2024. But another guy, you talk about Paul Reed. I would like to see Paul Reed in a Nick Nurse system, cutting to the basket. That I think that's a guy that could have a real chance to be a breakout player in the NBA next year, especially with a longer leash, a guy he's going to get more consistent minutes. So I'll go Paul Reed.
I love Paul Reed. I love that idea. And I was one of the guys that was like, you and Sean Bernard are a little too processy with this guy. Like, a little too processy. Like, he turns the ball over. He gets a ton of fouls. Like, I know he has skill in the G League to drop whatever he wants, but this is the NBA. And not that I wanted to get rid of him. I thought he had talent and you should play him. But as he played more and more, he's got better and better. And now that he's going to be under a coach like Nick Nurse, I agree, Dives. That's going to be so intriguing.
The best teams that Nick Nurse coached were ones that got out in transition, they got deflections, and they turned defense to offense. Paul Reed screams a Nick Nurse guy.
Heck yeah. Well, my guy, and he's already been a pleasant surprise under Doc, but he's a two-way player. He kind of missed some threes there at the end in Game 6, which kind of didn't show up, but he's not supposed to be the star. I think DeAnthony Melton is going to take it to another level with Nick Nurse, because with his coaching and guidance, you just have a whole new way of doing things. He's going to get out and run, like you just said. I'm really excited to see DeAnthony Melton because, like you said, Rob, Fred VanVleet grew under Nurse. Even Kyle Lowry got a little better under Nick Nurse. And now you're going to have DeAnthony Melton to have this hard coaching that's going to be on him. He's going to benefit tremendously with Nick Nurse's style.
Love it. Yeah.
Well, that's the players we got. Now let's put our GM hats on. But before we put our GM hats on, I almost forgot. Let's get to our amazing sponsor. Let's start with David R. Cherry, Esquire. If you have any issues with workers' compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, criminal law, call David R. Cherry now, 610-565-0300, or go to www.cherryinjurylaw.com, the Cherry Firm PC. Also, if you need tickets to the big game, the Phillies game, Phillies are getting hot. I got the spot for you too. Go to Sherry's Ticket Town. Go to sherrystickets.com. Great prices, no hidden fees, sports, concerts, theaters, family owned and operated since 1946. They got an office right in Delaware County. You can call them and talk to them one-to-one. They're just a great company. They even cut you a deal on the side sometimes if you make the right approach. But you can even save more. Go to that website, put in the promo code EOP10. I personally used them for many things, and Disney on Ice actually got a great deal. $80, 15 rows off when all the other venues were around 100, 120. Go to sherrystickets.com today. Also, if you want to go on the big trip, we got that for you too. phillysportstrips.com. Their next trip coming up, Wrigley Field, June 28th to July 1st. Go to phillysportstrips.com. Book that today. If it's a little too late in the game for that, they got you covered as well. Pittsburgh, end of July. Pittsburgh's playing good ball, second place in the Central. Go check out phillysportstrips.com. Book a trip today. They got every single NFL thing you can think of as well. Every game, there's either a bus going to the local ones, a plane, or even tailgates right at home. phillysportstrips.com. Now let's put our Daryl Morey hats on, and do you want to do rock, paper, scissors? Who wants to go first? I would like to see a rock, paper, scissors right now between you.
Okay.
I'll be the judge.
All right, me and Rob. Ready?
Preston's going to do it.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You got to hold your hands up, guys. I can't see.
I had rock.
So you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. You want to get the graphic up?
Yep, coming right up.
All right. So I'm not going to make a lot of friends with this blueprint, but here it is. The Sixers send James Harden to Phoenix in a 3-team deal, bring back some assets, not CP3. I'm not bringing back Chris Paul. He's too old. I'm not doing that. We are trading Tobias Harris for some small pieces. We're talking Eric Gordon, Robert Covington, and Terrence Mann. We went through a lot of Tobias Harris trades. This is one I think is relatively realistic, and I'll get into why. We are going to bring in Max Strus, and we are going to re-sign Paul Reed to a 3-year, around like $24 million contract, $8 million per. So my starters are Tyrese Maxey, Eric Gordon, Terrence Mann, PJ Tucker, and Joel Embiid. For me personally, I'm giving Maxey every opportunity to be my one this season. We're going to get a ton of DHOs and driving kicks in Nick Nurse's offense. That means you need to hit open threes from the corners. Rocco last year shot 9 of 22. Gordon shot 14 of 31. Mann shot 34 of 101, and Tucker shot pretty like average, like 35%. So we're bringing in some wings. Let's talk about another wing, Terrence Mann. He's not a high volume scorer, but he's a guy that can do a little ball handling. He's a guy that has really good defense, really good rebounder, an ideal fit next to Embiid and Maxey. He's one of those like high energy guys that can bring a lot to the court. He signed on for 2 more years at $22 million total. He also started 36 games for the Clippers last year, shooting 43% from 3, and he had a +7 net in those games. So he's only 26, and he's been getting better and better. He's like a taller Patrick Beverley, if you ever watched him play. He's I think an underrated player. Eric Gordon, veteran guard, useful floor spacer, non-guaranteed $20 million salary for next year. Obviously, the more floor spacing, the better for Embiid. And then you talk about Rocco, and I know Rob is going to hate this one, but hear me out. His help in off-ball defense would be much needed here. He had a ridiculous 1.8 steals and 1.5 blocks per 36 minutes last year. Yes, he's streaky shooting, Rob, but he ended the season shooting nearly 40% from 3 while attempting 8.6 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. The Sixers absolutely must shoot more 3-pointers next season, and those attempts per 100 possessions is more than 80% of the Sixers roster in 2023. The Sixers were also a terrible rebounding team. Rocco averaged 10.4 rebounds per 100 possessions. That's more than every other Sixer not named Joel Embiid and Paul Reed. So for me, next season is going to be a tough pill to swallow. But I just want the Sixers to focus on the Sixers for once. I want them to build something that's lasting or longer lasting organically while establishing a new culture, a new way to play, a more modern type of Sixers basketball. I want the Sixers to stop throwing garbage against the wall every offseason and expecting different results. It hasn't done a damn thing for this franchise. Why not try a different approach? I'm trying to see what I got in Tyrese Maxey next year. That is the goal. It is definitely a season where you're not going to have high expectations, but you look at what they could do beyond with more cap space in 2024.
Interesting. Rocco coming home. I think you got a lot of process lovers that would love that, actually. And as I see Rob shaking his head because he can't dribble, he can't make layups, and I'm sure he gets in lanes though. He does getting passing lanes. That's what Rocco does. Rob, go ahead. Good. I'm a known. Well, you guys don't know me that long. I'm a Rocco hater. Hate Rocco. So go ahead. Go, Rob.
Oh, wait, hold on. You're muted. Hold on. Gotcha.
You're muted up.
There you go.
If Robert Covington is in a Sixers uniform next year, I don't know if I can actually provide any fandom, because if Sixers fans have annoyed me the last 3 years the way that they have, when those morons come back out of their little cockroach holes to tell me how great Robert Covington is, and I'm not saying you, Dives, I'm talking about like those people that truly believed Robert Covington was a humongous difference maker when he played with the likes of Brandon Davies and guys of that nature. I'm going to lose my shit. Like, I can't, like, it would pain me in such a way to see Robert Covington. I'm all about a different approach. I agree with Dodge on that. I think there has to be a different approach. But I can't. I mean, I'm telling you right now that the battles that I had with the analytics department that told me Robert Covington was a great 3-and-D guy, I know.
We pick on Robert Covington here, but he is clearly the throw-in in this.
Yeah, let's be honest. Like, he's not going to be getting a lot of minutes in this deal. Like, he's like the kind of the.
I opened with him, but
guys. It's honestly like just one of. It's like a PTSD thing. I don't think I can watch Robert Covington in a Sixers uniform and actually not feel like, oh my God, here we go.
But what you're trying to do, and I think the theory is correct, is you're trying to surround Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey with as many two-way wings as possible. So you have Melton off the bench. You have Mann, who is an up-and-coming defensive player. You have Daniel House. You still have Paul Reed. You've still got Jalen McDaniels. You've got PJ Tucker, who Tucker low-key could look a lot better in a Nick Nurse system as well. So I think there's more two-way guys surrounding your two stars in Maxey and Embiid. That was kind of the concept.
Yeah, and listen, and I love the concept. I am much lower on the offensive side of Robert Covington than a lot of people. I don't think he's a good offensive player. I think he misses far too many shots at the rim, and that was when he was younger. I think the streaky is a nice way of saying every now and again he would hit some threes. Like, I mean, that's just the way. And I know stats and all that, but I don't know, man. Like, that's where my eye test of basketball play, and I just can't watch Robert Covington play. He drove me. And look, I was the same guy. I was the same way about Andre Iguodala when he was here. I hated Andre Iguodala. And he's a good player. He's a great player, right? He's a great player. But, like, I always felt Andre Iguodala needed to be on the Golden State Warriors to be the great player. Whereas a lot of people, Ed Stefanski, thought he was the star, and he never was.
He's a good role player.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Dives, and you're right. Two-way players are going to be huge. I just hope that they find better two-way players than Robert Covington. That's all.
Well, Covington's not really part of this deal. Let's be honest. What's he going to play? He'll barely play. I like your comp to Terrence Mann, to Patrick Beverley. That's a grit and grind Philadelphia type of feel that people will love. And he's always been rumored in trades. Like, back to Brett Brown. Like, he's always come up in, like, could he come here? Terrence Mann when he was on the Magic even. So I like that. And then let's not sleep on Eric Gordon in this deal. That you're going to provide spacing on the floor to give Embiid options to throw the ball to that might actually knock down that three-pointer. So I think the team overall will be better. What I really like the most about this, and I went back and forth when I did mine, is letting Maxey take the reins as the point guard. Dives.
Yes.
That's a huge thing that if Harden doesn't come back, that we need to see, because if he does or doesn't is irrelevant to me. We just know what we do next year, because next year Harris comes off the books and then you can make a move. You could kind of use this year as a stopgap to see that, if that makes sense.
It's like the Jalen Hurts year, and maybe he does take that next step like Hurts did.
Yeah. Well, let's get to Rob. I'll go to Rob next, because mine is a slightly unrealistic. So I want to keep it with the realistic one, unless you want to do rock, paper.
All right, whatever you want to. You are the host tonight, sir. You let me know what you want to do.
I'll let you go next, because I think we have similar stuff, and I want you to get it first. So let's jump into your trade. Rob, explain how you are Daryl Morey.
All right, so and Chris will tell you, I literally went back and forth on this first point. I am fine one way or the other with James Harden, but obviously that's going to have to be the first chip to fall in this offseason, because without that, I don't know if you can figure some of this other stuff out. So I'm going to say if you could get James Harden for a non-max deal, which I actually think is becoming more and more possible, because I don't think anybody's going to give him a max deal, bring him back. Okay, bring him back to kind of be that second guy. I don't even want to say the second guy, but just bring him back to be the facilitator, to be the guy that every now and again could go off. But you're hoping that you don't need him offensively as much as maybe you did last year. So next, I love Tobias Harris, but it is time. We talk about guys that have been rumored to the Sixers for years now. Buddy Hield has been a name that I feel like we've been talking about for 3 years. I think the time is now to strike on it. I think you send Tobias to Indiana. I think he could be a nice veteran presence for that team that's being run with Tyrese Halliburton now. You bring back Buddy Hield. No, I'm not bringing back TJ McConnell, because I love TJ McConnell. I'm bringing back TJ McConnell because his $8 million makes this deal viable. You kind of need him as a throw in there just to make the money make sense. And then obviously, there's going to be other picks and things that are going to have to get thrown in there as well. For me, when it comes to free agents, you have got to find a way to lure Dante DiVincenzo here. I think Dante DiVincenzo is a great fit here. I think he's the type of guy that Nick Nurse would love because he's scrappy as hell. He could shoot the ball. We know that if you've ever watched Villanova. And I actually think DiVincenzo can defend a little bit. I think DiVincenzo can absolutely defend a little bit. The guy that and Dives, I put it in all capital letters. When the Sixers traded for James Harden, my biggest disappointment of the whole thing was Seth Curry was gone. Now I'm a Carolina fan, but man, do I love me some Seth Curry. You talk about a guy that can space the floor, and now he doesn't have to start with this new team. He can come off the bench and provide some three-point scoring off of the bench. I would love to bring Seth Curry back here. He loved it here. He didn't want to leave here, but he didn't have bad, ill will. And now he doesn't have his father-in-law to play for, so that could be beneficial for Seth Curry as well. The next thing I would do is very much like Dives. I'm all in on Paul Reed being the backup center for multiple reasons. I thought he showed some really, really good moments in the playoffs. I think he is a Nick Nurse type player. I think he's shown enough that you don't have to go out and sign one of these veteran big guys to come in and give you a few minutes and hope they can give you something. I think it's time for Paul Reed to have that job locked up. And no, there's nothing personal about the fact that I would maybe try and be Paul Reed's realtor if he buys a house in South Jersey. Don't worry about that. That has nothing to do with it. And then my starting five would be Harden and Maxey, Buddy Hield. I think you're going to have to start PJ Tucker. Doesn't mean he's going to play that many minutes, but you're going to start PJ Tucker, and then obviously the big guy Joel Embiid.
Dives, first thoughts.
I think defensively is where the concerns come in significantly. Offensively, there's definitely real fits, especially in a Nick Nurse system. We already saw it with Seth Curry flying around screens with Joel Embiid. I think that's a real fit. I think Buddy Hield would be a natural transition to Philly as well, with his ability to fly over screens and shoot off handoffs and provide spacing. It's just the defense part that has me the most concerned. I like it. Buddy Hield was my number one thought process for Tobias Harris. When I threw the idea out to these guys, Rob got back to me first and presented the Buddy Hield trade. And unfortunately, I was like, damn it, because I wanted him to be in my deal tonight, my blueprint tonight. So I like it. There's no real winning in any of these scenarios. I don't think Nick Nurse is coming to Philadelphia and suddenly turning Harden and Embiid into a championship team. I just don't think that's happening. That's just my take. But well done, Rob.
Yeah, I would say if we could trade Tobias Harris for that trade, I'm all in. I think that's great because you got expiring contracts. TJ McConnell, as much as everyone else thought he was like a starting point guard, he got a good contract over there and proved not to be. I was kind of not in on him either, but I understood his role, and I think his grittiness and his heart is infectious, and we saw that through years. So even if he's – and how many we don't have it. We still don't have a backup point guard. We have Anthony Melton can kind of handle the ball, but he's not a backup point guard. And to bring TJ in to just do a little spark here and in 5 minutes just be a maniac on the floor, and if he's on, he's on, he's off, he's off. I think that's an underrated part of the deal. Buddy Hield, why not? We need to spread the floor. We need spacing. I have been yearning for the day of JJ Redick, Bellinelli, and Ersan Ilyasova.
Oh my God!
That was so great. And the fact that they choked on some Brett Brown coaching mistakes there, in my opinion, in that Boston series, That team was so awesome. Like Ben Simmons went 15-1 down the stretch as a rookie point guard without Embiid with that roster. So to bring back those shooters, Seth Curry, Dante DiVincenzo, I agree with you. There's going to be similarities in my starter. I love this deal as well. There is a lack of defense, but we have seen through coaching, defense improves across the board. Even Doc Rivers put a focus on players and improved their defense. You know, Maxey was a turnstile at one point, and now he's better. He's not good. So I think Nick Nurse could definitely raise the defensive level of that roster you have there.
I love the DiVincenzo pick too, because there is some like similarities between a Nick Nurse system and like a Jay Wright Villanova system. A lot of spread offense, a lot of pick and roll, a lot of motion. I definitely think he could maybe find, some coming, a home in Philly.
All right, we'll jump into my trade now. Let's start this off with, I went through the roster and the people, I'm like, we need to cut this bench because this bench just doesn't have it. And they just don't. So Dwayne Dedman, gone. McDaniels, gone. Shake Milton, gone. Mac McClung, who was on the roster at the end there, gone. George Niang, gone. Montrezl Harrell is kind of the key here with the cap. So he has a player option for 2.6. That's about $3 million there. We need him to opt out. If he opts in, this kind of screws this up a little bit because we need every single dollar we can get. All right. So my idea here is, and you talked about it, Dibes, every single year we redo the team. James Harden and Joel Embiid have only been together for 1.5 years. And if it wasn't for James Harden, the Philadelphia 76ers would have been swept by the Boston Celtics in the first round. I think we kind of forget those 2 games where you saw the other side of him. Now, can he be a consistent 2? No. But he's still a good player, and he's a good point guard with vision. He just has those games where he's just totally off. So I would actually run it back under Nick Nurse and see this roster with Nick Nurse. James Harden, as long as we're not giving him a 4-year max, which all tweets show he was trying to use Houston to leverage himself, it looks like he's going to have to decide to opt into that 1-year deal or get a smaller multi-year deal. The second thing I would do, bring back Tobias Harris. If anyone can find a way to utilize this guy, I think it's Nick Nurse. Harris's defense before Rivers and after Rivers is tremendously different. Like, even Rivers was like, I can't believe – actually, Brett Brown should get some credit for it because Rivers couldn't believe how improved his defense is. I think he'll fit well under Nurse. Bring him back, see how it goes. And if at the trade deadline you want to trade him, fine. If it's going well, ride it out to the end of the year. And now my free agent acquisitions. KJ Martin, okay, he has a club option for about $2 million, which normally you would say, that's a done deal. The Rockets are going to make that move. But all articles in Houston say that's a big decision. They're not sure. They have other young players, Jayshawn Tate being one of them. There's kind of a logjam as far as who they're going to pay long term. They likely will bring him back, I would think. But if for some reason that doesn't happen, I would bring in KJ Martin, make him your starting small forward. Also, I would just – all those guys I got rid of, I would fill the bench. Seth Curry, you talked about him, Rob. Love him. I don't know what's not to love. He's a defensive liability, but he's not going to be a starter with this roster. Dante DiVincenzo, I agree. He can play D. You watch games. I've seen him D up in Golden State. I've seen him D up for the Bucks. Now, is he a lockdown defender? No. But again, he can grow, and then he comes home. He comes back to Philly. I'm sure he would love to be here. These 2 are going to be minimum deals, Danny Green and Markieff Morris. I've long wanted one of the Morris brothers. This is the lesser of the 2, but I'll take Markieff Morris and Danny Green on those low deals. Danny Green played 26 minutes and was like 4 of 8. I think it was 4 of 10. My point is he shot 40% or higher from 3. He's going to be a year healthier. He's old. And also, don't forget, he was on that Nick Nurse championship team as well. He can help instill those Nick Nurse values. He was a veteran on Embiid. Listened to him. I think bringing Danny Green back in a bench role would be a great move. And then my starters, as I said, we're running it back. So it's James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, KJ Martin, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. I will say, if the KJ Martin thing doesn't work out, my second kind of backup move, and we're going to lose some defense here, would probably be Joe Ingles. I want to keep that spacing on the floor, and I want PJ Tucker on the bench. I like PJ Tucker. He's not a starter. He's not a 35-minute guy. Get him on the bench. How you guys feeling?
I hate it.
Yes. Go.
I absolutely hate it. Running it back is just not the path. Again, I'm a belief that Nick Nurse, as great of a signing as it is, this team is capped out, man. They have to make some changes. Keeping Tobias Harris is a massive mistake. The only thing I can think about positively about this is adding more to the Sixers bench. The idea of not running James Harden and Joel Embiid 40 minutes of the game and running them into the ground during the regular season, that is the caveat. If Nick Nurse is able to say, James, Joel, Tobias, your minutes are going to be cut significantly, and we're going to experiment more. We're going to do more long combinations and see what we got moving forward. Maybe you have something there, but a team that runs it back with a few guys where I just don't see it, man. And I don't know how any Sixers fan would find any excitement out of that. I just don't.
I'm not looking for excitement. I'm looking to win. So let me ask you a question.
I'm not looking to win.
On our bench, hold on. In Game 6, were there open shots to be made?
Yes, absolutely.
Who missed them?
Yeah, the entire team.
The bench. The bench did. So I just asked that curiously. But Rob, what's your thoughts?
So where I agree that I think the bench needs an overhaul, because I think that they just failed so many times to establish the bench. I do love DeAnthony Melton coming off the bench. Listen, I would love for PJ Tucker to come off the bench, but what better way to get some bench pieces and one starter and one bench piece at least than to trade Tobias Harris's contract? The contract's just eating up too much that I think you can get two players for the price of him that will give more combined than what Tobias Harris is giving you at this point. I kind of agree with Dives in the sense where I can't just run it back stat quo for the most part. I can accept James Harden back here if you have a bench where you can go and give him more time off during the regular season and you're not giving him a max deal. That's why I said keep James Harden, because I would like to see him with a little bit more rest during the regular season. Maybe his playoff performances aren't so vastly different, either so high or so low. It's good all the way around. But to me, I think it begins and ends with figuring out a way to get somebody for spacing and or someone for defense from a Tobias Harris trade. I just think you've got to start there. And then I agree. That's why I said, look, Seth Curry is a bench piece. I love it. Love it. Paul Reed being your backup center, I love it. Dante DiVincenzo is a guy that if you're, another guy that if he's not starting, great bench piece, scrappy dude. So I'm all about changing the bench, but I just don't see where Dives says he's not sure if Embiid and Harden together can win a championship. I'm not sure about that yet, but I am sure in my mind that Embiid, Harden, and Harris together just cannot work anymore, and you don't have enough money to allocate to other positions of need.
Any plan that Anthony Hand's checking in? Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Any plan that involves keeping Tobias Harris can't be taken seriously. I semi-agree with that. Here's my point. Some of my point of running it back. I don't know that we can trade him. That deal sounds great, but would they do it? And would they want Tobias Harris? And any trade that we did a whole show on Tobias Harris trades.
Yeah.
But will they happen is the key. So, my thought process was move him back to the 4 where he had more success before.
I think you can sweeten it. And I know a lot of people are not going to want to do this, but I think you could throw a Jaden Springer in a deal with the expiring Tobias Harris contract and get players of value if you do that. I think Jaden Springer's a guy that's going to, there's enough with him that people are going to be enticed. If you throw him in as a sweetener with the expiring contract of a veteran presence like Tobias Harris, I think Indiana is desperately in need of a Tobias Harris type. They need that veteran that could come in there and solidify things for them. That's why, if I'm Daryl,
hold on, time out. Solidify what? He doesn't solidify anything for us. So why would he solidify things there?
Because here he does not have the ball in his hands nearly enough to make the impact he wants to make. Right? Tobias Harris is a guy that when he gets the ball in his hands early in a shot clock and goes, things can happen. It's not going to happen here. James Harden and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are going to dominate the basketball. So he goes there and he plays with a Tyrese Halliburton and things of that nature. I just think he fits better in Indiana now than he does here in Philadelphia.
I couldn't agree anymore with that. I fully agree. In a more ISO offense where Tobias gets more touches and more opportunities, I think there is something to that.
I had to ask the question, but all right. So one more question I have for both of you guys. So with oh my God, I forgot the question. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, as you guys are talking, I'm like, don't forget this. Hold on. Forget it. I'll get it the next show. But oh my God, I can't believe I forgot the question. Oh well. But anyhow, great show tonight. Anything to add on trades or possibilities?
Gosh, I think they're not going to do my blueprint. That's what I would do. I think the Sixers are 100% going to try and find multi-team deals to bring in assets, to bring in guys, to make a run for it. I think bringing back James Harden on a massive 3-year deal or something is a critical mistake. I think, keeping Tobias Harris is a massive mistake. This team needs a major shakeup. I would be content. I would be much more content having a prove-it year with Maxey at the 1 and seeing what you got versus running it back next year and, kind of hoping, something sticks on the wall in 2024. Not for me, man.
Dives, is there any circumstance where you're okay with Harden coming back? Is there any number that, you say, all right, I can accept that if they do X, Y, and Z as well?
Yeah, I mean, geez.
And I mean a realistic number, because obviously he's not coming back for the veteran minimum. You know what I mean?
So, yeah. No, I'm no cap guy, so I'm not going to throw out a number.
I'll do the cap real quick. I'll do the cap real quick. So he has an option to opt in for $35 million, right?
35.
So my thought is the only way he gets a multi-year deal, it would be 2 years, 40 both years. So this whole max deal thing, this was my question actually. How in the world is another team going to sign James Harden to a max? So for me, he's stuck here. He's not getting. Is he going to get $35 million or even $35 million a year elsewhere, Rob?
No, he's not, and that's why the longer this thing goes on and the more that comes out, I'm starting to think, does he just say, screw it, I'll opt in for a year?
Yes, that's where I'm at.
And I mean, look, that's not a good scenario, I think, for the Sixers. But if that happens, okay, he's here. You know what he's accounting for. Now I think it becomes even more imperative that Tobias Harris is moved. And exactly. I do think the time – I know what people are saying, wait till the deadline, but I think the time is now. The time is now. You move him in the summer. If you have to throw in Jaden Springer, I know a lot of people here won't love it, but I'd be okay with it if they brought you back somebody like we said, like a Buddy Hield, who can stretch the floor, who can just, go nuts from 3 from time to time. I'm okay with it. But you cannot come back and just put the same starting 5 out there next year. I just think, and, listen, it's time to say goodbye to Furkan and Shake and these guys. I don't want to see them on my bench anymore. Replace them.
Furkan is stuck here. He has to be thrown in a deal. You replace Rob, the removal of Furkan is my theory here, ends the Colangelo curse. He would be the last person with any inkling to Brian Colangelo, which would then open us up for a championship from the basketball gods. I fully believe that. But we had to find a way to get rid of him. So Guys, real quick though, I have to ask you this. You're Springer. I was a hater. I watched him in that Hawks game, and not that because he was playing the Hawks. They needed to win that game, by the way. But the guy actually wanted the ball. He commanded the ball. He wanted to score. He was not scared. I have turned into a Springer. I really like him. Would you throw him in a deal just to get rid of Tobias Harris?
Yes. and this comes from someone that I'm really excited to see Springer in a maxi backcourt with Nick Nurse, because I think he's going to be one of the best defensive players next year the second he steps on the court. That's how good he is. He's got NBA defense. And he made major steps forward in his development. His mid-range game, although it's not a great fit with Embiid, that's what it is. It's kind of that Jimmy Butler type of flow. But you know, I would do it. To get out of that Tobias Harris contract is so critical. And if that's the difference, you bite the bullet. Although I do like that. That's in my scenario, my blueprint where I have Maxey as my one. Springer's playing off that bench.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, that's enough for tonight. We got NBA Finals we're missing right now. Heat Nuggets. Will the Heat win? I don't know. But for Chris Dodds and Rob Lange, I'm Freddie Burns. We will see you next week, 6:15, unless we change the time or the day. Party on, Broad!